Thank you for the great introduction, and I never knew that my meaning of my name will be called out in such a big forum. So that was a big surprise. As this particular panel discussion, I think there are two major concepts, right? One is agentic AI, another is customized LLM. So before I start the panel, let me just quickly, run through what agentic AI means. So it's a concept which includes autonomous decision making, right? So if you're using agentic AI, it's basically an artificial intelligence system. You are building something which can fulfill the goal without human intervention. So for example, like a driverless car. So they uses quite a lot of agentic AI framework. If I talk about customized LLMs, right? So we have foundational models, we have pre-trained models. So when you talk about the customized, as the name suggests, that what you are doing is basically you are customizing the pre-trained model for a specific task, and that is what exactly the customized LLM means. And what before this panel discussion, Matangali mentioned about RAG and I think fine-tuning. So those are essentially some of the techniques of customized LLMs. So with that, I'll open up the panel discussion. So my first question to this eminent panel will be, in the space of agentic AI and the customized LLMs, what kind of work your industry or your company is doing, and what kind of benefits you are able to see? So let me start with Chiranjiv.
Yeah. Thank you. Before we deep dive into this, I think what's more important is to understand that agentic AI as a system is nothing new. It's been there for decades now. We started with rule-based systems. It's a system at the end of the day. Then you had machine learning. We created machine learning systems. Then came autonomous driving, which tried to propel how you develop things, right? And primarily triggered the workflows. Now we are looking at expanding of agentic AI and coming it into actually how would you utilize process to be done. Let me give you two examples. For customer services, right, in traditional artificial intelligence, you would take an FAQ, Matangi was showing us one of the FAQs, right? And that answers a static or a pre-tuned approach. For agentic artificial intelligence, it would go ahead and understand, depending upon the connotation, depending upon the tone of the customer, right? It would go ahead and improvise the conversation to give an answer, basically, based upon the situation itself. So agentic AI primarily is about process. But in a core area, for example, manufacturing, in let's say production, right? You can have traditional artificial intelligence which can give you predictive alerts. We all know predictive maintenance. But when you use agentic AI, which is a system, right, in place to have a process, it can go ahead and modulate some of the stages, and it can go and improvise itself. That's the power of agentic AI for me. Thank you.
Urvinder, you want to take it?
Yeah. So I'm basically coming from a very different kind of a background. My industry is into industrial gases, engineering, chemicals, etc. And the way we are looking at the LLMs or custom LLMs in a very different way, and we have moved away from a traditional approach of like, let's try to work on a POC kind of a thing. Like one of the panelists, or rather, you can say in one of the other room, someone has stated that LLM or rather 𝗶𝗄𝐶 graveyard. I think we have moved away from that POC stage. And now how we are looking at is what LLMs or rather what GenAI capabilities are generating value, and is it making an impact in the business or not? And then we start building our strategies on top of it, and then we start building various models, or rather you can say solutions. And if I talk about some of the solutions that we have built in our organizations, is let's start with simple maintenance work. So if you see the skill set of those maintenance is like diploma holders and stuff like that. So how easy we can make their life when it comes to maintenance of these heavy machinery that we have in our plant, or we call it as ASU, that is air separation units, that differentiates or rather bifurcates various different elements of the air like nitrogen, oxygen, and XYZ. So when it comes to maintenance and when we have to onboard a new person, how easy we can make his life instead of going through 1,000 pages of SOPs of each and every component of our, you can say, industry, or you can say the construction part, how easy we can make it. So we have used this concept of custom LLMs and we have built a model, we call it as Argus. And what we are doing here is we are helping these guys, we are uplifting these guys, instead of going through a traditional approach of reading the n numbers of SOP lines, just type in the prompt and you will get a systematic way how to solve it, how to tackle it, and he will be getting a response in a very quick time. So this is one of the use cases that we are working. And second use case I want to talk about is a mix of two things, which I will further try to bifurcate. First one is that how we can start initiation of your lead generation or negotiation with the business, because we deal in a B2B kind of an organization. So lead generation in B2B kind of organization is very important. So this is where our agentic AI kind of a layer comes in, where it will start and initiate the first level of negotiations. And once it leads, you can say reach a level of maturity, this is where the human in the loop will come in, so that it is not completely the AI doing the work. It is also human in the loop to make the balance between each and every aspect. So this is one thing. And the last thing that we have been using for almost like 6 months now, that is how we can extract features from unstructured data and use it in a very systematic order in a structured form. So like we have invoices, like when we are doing price negotiation with long-term contracts, like if I talk about XYZ companies that we have in terms of space, if we say. So there's a long discussion, there are many to and flows of mails or invoices, documents, etc. What if we can extract a very set of features and create a very traditional kind of ML model on top of it, which can further enhance our capability? So these are the things that we are looking into with respect to this customized LLM, not just giving the generative out of it, but also extracting the features to use a different layer on top of it with the traditional AI thing. So this is how we are using it.
Oh, this is great. I think one of the use cases you mentioned about onboarding, I think that can be leveraged across the industry, right? Especially, say, onboarding newcomers or new joinees also. We actually go through a lot of documents. Something could be leveraged.
So I want to add here is that the ability and the advantage of having these custom, or rather these LLMs, is multilinguality. So it doesn't matter like whether you are sitting in India or you are sitting in RGC, that is the China or some other part of the world. So it doesn't matter like how you're generating those SOPs. I'll be talking about this thing later, sure. But this is how we are bringing all these things together.
So Vishal, what Amazon is doing in this area?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot happening across the organization, but I'll talk about the business that I am part of, right? So just to give everyone a context, so I'm part of seller risk business. So we try to control risks that exists onto Amazon platform coming from sellers. So for instance, if you have like counterfeit products, how do you identify counterfeit products? Now, there are models which do that, but now what happens is at times models would be wrong. When models are wrong, we will block the sellers and sellers will say, hey, you have incorrectly blocked me, these are the documents, and then there will be certain operations people who will kind of go through it, right? So we have a huge army of operation people at Amazon which kind of work with sellers day in and day out, solving their queries, also ensuring that we don't have any regulatory risk from that standpoint. Now with small LLMs or LLMs coming into place, what we see is there's a huge opportunity for us to kind of see things very differently, right? Because like I said, there are multiple steps into this process. They are going in through, say, images, they're going in through invoices, they are responding back to the sellers. So there are a lot of conversations and steps that are involved in all of this, right? So we are working towards automating a lot of this to the extent possible. And what we're seeing is like the vision is that the role of the operations people would kind of change. What ideally they should be doing is they should be trained more on, say, prompt engineering, wherein like they'll be working on prompts coming from the LLMs, or they would be kind of doing the validations from the LLMs, and wherever there are like edge cases, they'll kind of intervene, right? So that's where we see as an opportunity. Obviously, we see a lot of efficiencies coming in over there. It's a journey that we're going through. But yeah, let's see how that goes.
That's brilliant. By the way, Kenvue is one of the sellers in Amazon. So you must be doing something for us.
I hope we are not incorrectly blocking. Yes.
So Sandeep, over to you. What's happening in the startup world?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll restrict my comments to the sales and marketing industry as to how are they really leveraging agentic AIs and the customized LLMs. And most of my work is in the area of helping those guys enhance the value of their investments. See, what is happening in the marketing world largely, the expectation of CMOs or the CXOs have risen from taking a diagnostics or a predictive work to a prescriptive work. So everybody is not asking a question of what has driven my value or my business, what could drive my business in the next quarter, next 6 months, and what do I do from the investments, from the channels, from the allocations that will take me there. Now, if you look at past and now, there are many triggers that are there that actually decides what's going to happen to your business as you move forward. Now, when the triggers have become into hundreds of the triggers is where the agentic model comes into the play. Unless I'm able to define those triggers, and triggers are like this, if a trigger happens now, how could I serve you something now that I'm able to convert you, and I'm able to convert you saying that the probability of you converting with the trigger is 20%, the probability of you converting the trigger is 80%. So therefore, accordingly, I can customize my offer. There's one part of it which is where this framework is getting a lot of traction. And I'll share a use case which I think is a brilliant use case that has been used. Second is that you would have heard a term called personalization, and that has gone up from a personalization at scale. I don't want to personalize one person at one point in time. I want to personalize for all the people sitting out here in one time, basis your contextual understanding, basis your taste, basis your behaviors. How do I serve the right product to you? And these are places where, if you were to look at the older base, it was a little hard to convert people into the real time, and that's where the agentic models have come into the play. They're working brilliantly. I think we're able to serve a right kind of a communication through right kind of a channel with the right kind of an offer to individuals, and it is showing the improvement in the conversions. That's where the increases have happened. So that's I think one of the areas where how it's being used. But I think the use case that I would take it here is that, so we worked with the airport authority and the airline partners together. I find that use case really good because what we were doing there is 12 hours before the flight times, we were able to predict how many flights are going to be delayed or cancelled, and 4 hours before the flight, what a good 99% accuracy as to which flight is going to be delayed or cancelled. Now, assuming that going to be delayed or cancelled and the passengers are going to be there at the airport, a lot of airport services are there. So they use this model to say the minute a traveler has walked into the airport, flight is late, now they have 2 hours. So all the restaurants, bars, different services at the airport, they started sending the messages to these guys, knowing very well that, a person is kind of a captive, has to be at the airport, go to the lounge, go to the places. So they started serving that. Plus, a lot of bed and breakfast kind of people came in there saying that this is the last flight. If this flight is cancelled, there's no way you're going to take a next flight, so you'll be sort of staying for overnight. So how do I reach out to that? That model really created and increased the footfall, increased the bill value and rev for all the players inside the airport, which I thought worked really well for them, and that's continuing. So that's one use case, purely use agentic models, and that's a framework that's been using to drive this adoption. So yeah, that's from my side.
Awesome. So Mausam, you are part of the healthcare industry, right? And it's one of the most talked about industry, and everyone is looking forward in terms of AI and Gen AI. So what's happening in healthcare?
Oh, that's great. Actually, the way I was introduced as AI influencer, I thought of putting that hat out and using the industry hat. But since you asked about healthcare, and I think there was a gentleman was asking a question that if you get different time contradicting answer from different LLMs, especially from public informations, how do you judge which one is right? It so happened we dealt with that problem because I represented a company whose primary business model was to get public data, digitize it, structure it, and selling it, and 100% of life sciences companies who still uses our data. And so we have to be absolutely correct, and we have to have a conviction on whatever the data we used to sell, right? And whenever earlier days, if you talk about the classical days, we had army of editors who used to go and check and validate each of the information we used to get. We used to hire huge number of people with pharma background who would know that, hey, this is right, that's wrong. They would go to the right forum, they would go to the right link to get the data. But when we first, and naturally, since that was our business model, we were one of the earliest adopters of generative AI because we saw there's a great value in there. So what we realized, and what I'm going to say is possibly understanding we developed over 2 years. It's never happened in one day. We realized agentic workflow is the possible answer. Even today, we have not cracked it totally, but that's how we can go. And I'm not going very vague high idea, but how did we do that? So basically, we had mimicked a complete editorial process using agents. The first step, we literally gathered data from various sources, and the agents were specializedly trained to get data from various sources and put that in forward. Then we had the agents, what we used to call editors. The editor's primary responsibility was to validate each of those outputs against few of the links and few of the authentic forums and try to find out how similar they were. And once that's done, there was a third kind of agents, which, and again, it's coming an agent swarm, and I think now almost everyone knows new agent swarm has come in, but I'm talking about when it was not there. So the third kind of agent which came out and said that, hey, now that we have fundamental data, we have now edited data, which has gone through editorial, let's pick up which is the best and which can take it forward and which can be digitized and curated. So that's how we kind of solved that problem. And I think, did we solve it 100%? No, we have not solved it 100%. We still see a lot of hallucinations. Sometimes it does make mistake, and that's why I'm saying healthcare is a place where you cannot afford to have 80% correct data, 80% correct prediction. You have to have 99.5% correct prediction. And that's one of the reasons, one of my fundamental suggestions as an influencer, I always say that find out that which are the areas we can use generative AI, which are the areas we should not use generative AI, but that's going to be a different case. But in that particular case, yes, this is one area we could solve, and I think now it's yielding a great result, and it's really think of the efficiency gain the company gets just by being 80% correct. We have not taken human completely out of the process, but 80% gain is a still significant gain for that company.
Oh, great. It's a very elaborate answer. And I must say that, identifying the right use case for generative AI is a key to success, right? So let's go to because now we define the use cases, right? So let's now talk about challenges, because I'm sure that it's not rosy everywhere, right? So because of the interest of the time, Mausam, I will start from here. Said, if you guys then highlight one challenges, and it can be an integration challenge, it can be adoption challenge, along with if you can also mention one KPI, which you guys typically track in order to measure the success. If you can just keep one points, I think that would be great.
That's a great question, and rather I'll talk about one than a framework, because that's gonna something we did. Guys don't laugh because it's not an industry framework, and it came out to us after writing some serious checks, and we realized the mistakes we made, at least on initial days, and we call the doctors framework. It's doctors is nothing but, I'm not gonna elaborate it, and that's something will take a lot of time, but it talks about, is your data right? What are the output guarantee are you getting? What is the cost? Are you okay to live with a technology which is still emerging? Are you okay to win the organization behavior that stands for the last O? And R, do you really need generative AI for the use cases? I think if you follow these, anyway, this is again the tip of the iceberg. The framework is far more detailed, but if you follow this, I think you would get a use case, and I think you would see that whether you can forecast whether you can succeed or not.
That's great. So Urvinder, over to you. If you can highlight one challenges, right, especially in terms of adoption, I think that will be great for the audience.
See, with respect to the adoption, I would rather say there are two aspects or two nuances to look at it. One is the technical, the other one is the business side of it. So let me try to bring the business side first. First is the scoping. So it should not be a fancy tale that I want to do something in this aspect, so I have to do something. But it should be like when the technical and the business sponsor are sitting on one table and deciding what has to be done, And then the technical person is leading the front, or rather leading from the front from all the technical know-hows, how it can be done. So once that is finalized, I think we have almost won half of the battle, because scoping is something which is very important. And then other part is like change management, which also holds a very key thing. Like if you're not able to implement those solutions that you have built and not able to propagate to various audiences, I think that you have not done a good job. I think these are two very important things, along with the skill set transfer. Means once you have developed it, if the user is unable to use it, I guess in the traditional AI space, this is one of the hindrances that we used to face. But with this ChatGPT coming in, or this LLM coming in, the user interface is so easy, therefore everyone is having a key to it. So I think that is very important, that the user interface or the usability of that solution should be very much, you can say, naive, so that even a person without any technical skill set should be able to use it. So these are some of the things that are the challenges, or rather this is how we have to look at it. From the technical aspect, I think it is about the, you can say, infra, how we can use the existing infra, what cost do we need. So these are the things that we look at, and how we evaluate. I would rather just try to summarize in just one line. The summarization basically means like the evaluation, or the key metric that we look is the adoption rate. The solution that we have built, whether there is a good adoption. So in our industry, we are not building anything for our clients. It is basically for our own industry. We are not sharing these things outside. So the adoption rate is very much high. And what business processes are we improving? I think this is one very important thing. Are we just for the sake of building things, or we are actually impacting one or the other kind of a business vertical which is actually generating value in terms? And at the end of the day is again the dollar value. Is it the hard benefit, or is it the soft benefit? It goes into the productivity part, but that is a very different kind of a thing. But it is more on the reusability, scalability part of it.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you on this, because I personally feel that one of the reasons why generative AI has picked up so much is the ease of use, especially the ChatGPT, compared to some of the other AI solutions, which may be much fascinating, but just because of the ease of use, I think generative AI has picked up pretty well. Sandeep, I'll go over to you. In terms of the, because you actually talk a lot of, come with a lot of companies, right? So what kind of bottleneck typically you face when you're trying to sell a Gen AI solution?
The biggest challenge is that the expectation is right here.
Sandeep,
the expectation is right here. So like I said, I want a very prescriptive kind of a system to be built where I should be able to get the answers to what will drive XYZ sales for us. But the challenge is that a lot of data that we ingest in the system, that to be modeled, that to be analyzed, to get the answers, is not there. The biggest challenge is you don't get access to every data that should go in the model to give you the right answers, which many times creates those biases in the model. So I may be giving a solution, but the drivers that I'm telling it to you may not be the drivers, because I have not really analyzed some of the drivers that possibly should get the benefit of why a business grew in the past and what is going to drive this in the future. So the biggest challenge, I would say, is the amount of data that you initially ingest into the system that may not give you all the answers as you're expecting from it. So you should be very clear of, if I'm not ingesting all the data, my answers are going to be limited to what I only have ingested. But you keep your answers to be right here. I want this to happen, but those things, you're not really given every field, every data into the model to learn, to understand, to measure, therefore to give you the answer. Yeah. That's the one part I think is where the challenge is. And I think second is that I find that there is not a lot of fragmentation happening at the client side now. And fragmentation means that you actually have a different owner of a different budget. A person who drives the digital part separately, a person who drives the marketing separately, a person who drives the performance separately, and so on and so forth. Now, each one of them have been given the budgets. Each one of them have been told to drive certain, growth at the back of that budget. And there's a whole lot of synergies that happens. Now, unless all of them are on a board, and that only a CEO can do, because they themselves otherwise would not be convinced as to why the money should go from me and should not go from the other person, because I'm given a task to drive. And that's a job that a CEO does it beautifully, because they eventually report to the CEO, to the person who drives that, as to where are the synergies happening more or less, and accordingly, who should be given more weightage in terms of investments, who is able to drive business faster, better as we move forward, and how can we have this thing in a more agile way, so that once your growth in a way matures or stops, who's the next one in line to sort of take the forward. So that's how the, I would say in terms of, challenges and some of the possible areas where how it could be taken forward.
Yeah, I think one of the use cases which I personally have felt is document search. Like every function keeps doing document search and they keep on talking with different vendor partners. So it should be one solution in my mind. Yeah, but totally with you on this. So Vishal, over to you. Any challenges you are facing in Amazon, and also what kind of KPI you guys are tracking?
In terms of challenges, like we've already talked about, obviously data is actually a challenge, right? Because I think a lot of these applications require data which we had not planned for earlier. Now we are looking at data which would be a combination of the structure that we already had, but the unstructured, a lot of like graph rags and all of those, right? How do we kind of combine them? The other part is like, how do we kind of ensure that, okay, once these documents are getting updated, this includes a lot of policy related information, how they can provide that information back to the systems and ensure that we are using the latest policy data and all of those. So there are a few data engineering challenges. There are a few obviously challenges related to honestly the ethical aspects as well, because we also operate in Europe, so there are very strong laws over there, not going into the details. So yeah, so I think those are a few things that we are kind of trying to figure out, work towards, taking one application at a time and kind of build data and then move forward. From a KPI perspective, there are two kind of broad KPIs. So one is like your technical KPIs, for instance, like how many incorrect actions you're taken, which existed in pre-LLM era as well, and now we have like reference points. So whether those KPIs are kind of deteriorating or whether they are improving, those kind of benchmarks we have. And the other is obviously from a business standpoint, whether there are a lot of investments that were being made, either from a headcount perspective, either from compute perspective, so whether we are getting those ROIs or not, right? So whenever we take an initiative, we know that, okay, 1 year, 2 year, this is what we're going to do. So whether we are on track to it or not. So these are a few guardrails that we are taking both from an implementation and business perspective.
Correct. Thank you, Vishal. Chiranjiv, over to you.
So I'll give you two concepts. First is everybody's thinking about data. See, we have been technologically trying to solve the problem yet. The first thing is about, and we controversially don't talk about it, we have, as in a 𝗂𝗲𝗊𝗄, we started working on this called synthetic data. Now, a lot of people call it fake, right? It's not actually fake. So you can utilize chain of thoughts along with agentic RAG models, and you can customize it to develop your nuances. Of course, it depends upon which kind of situation that you're working with, right? What kind of problem, but it has an ability to develop data for you and expand as an enabler, not as a competitor or just by saying that you will take out the original data and replace it with it. That's the first thing. Part two is whether you call it agentic AI or AI systems, you need to invest in ops. Now today we have a combination called ML ops and LLM ops, right? This is the second thing that we heavily invest, and we have been helping clients all over the world, right? In starting with, and everybody comes and say the first thing, I have a Jupyter notebook and Colab, or I can just do a pickle file and run it, right? What changed? What changed is how the system should work. How would you create a process like agentic RAG workflow? As we just heard from everybody, and agent is the top of the town. Hundreds of agents can do millions of tasks at point of time. How would you create it in a hierarchy? Which kind of models would you be using? Are you doing it on-premise or off-premise? You should be investing in these two things. That's very, very important for everybody to start off with. So I talked about the process and the technique part of the game. I've read the technology and the process wireframe for the organizations and the world. I'm keeping ethics and governance out of this question at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiranjiv. So I think we come to the end of our panel. If you realize what we just now did is, we started off with the use cases, and then we highlighted to the challenges, and then we ended up with the KPIs. So that's it from my end.